What we have here is parts, the internal parts off of a Sheridan Streak. And I thought we'd talk today about cleaning these parts. How do you get them cleaned up and ready for reinstallation? Most of these will go back into the same gun, other than the consumables like the pump cup or some of the seals. And there's probably hundreds of different ways that you can clean your parts. And there's probably lots of tips out there on the internet and in different publications. But today we're going to look at how I do it, or some of the different methods that I use. And these are things that I've learned over time, just researching these different methods. But also, one way that we're going to look at is how they used to teach us at gunsmithing school up at Lassen Community College. In Susanville, California. I don't know if they still teach it that way, but this is how it was when I went there for gunsmithing classes, and also air gunsmithing classes at that same Lassen College. We looked at cleaning parts through that series of classes as well. And there's a couple rules about cleaning. One is clean your parts before you clean them, if that makes any sense. I don't have anything that's really particularly disgustingly filthy here, but a lot of times you'll have a part that's just grungy and it's caked with dirt and debris over the years. Well, clean it off before you get serious about cleaning. Get most of the gunk off of there, with a rag or however you're going to do it, and then do your final cleaning with something like this that we're going to look at here in a minute. The other rule is that harsher chemicals clean better, and it's just a fact. Chet Paul's down in Fresno, California. He's an airgun repair smith, and he went back to Crossman, I think for one of their last classes years ago, on how to do airgun repair on Crossman guns. And he said it seemed like they were using carburetor cleaner to clean parts. And carburetor cleaner will clean them, brake cleaner will clean them. But it's a harsh chemical. It'll also take the skin off your hands and turn your clothes different colors. And so I tend to not use the harsher chemicals if I don't have to. And what we're going to look at here is some of the more kinder, gentler types of cleaning solutions that you can use. Let's talk about tools for a minute. And one thing that you're going to need when you clean your air guns, the parts, is rags. And these blue shop rags, or towels, they work really well. And so I do use these from time to time. You can also, if they're not too dirty, you can actually wash them and reuse them. So that's a good choice, but they're kind of pricey. So what I tend to do is I've got a bucket here, and as I use paper towels to, washing my hands as I go out of the shop or whatever, I'll toss them in here. And so I've got a collection of towels in here that I can use. So what we have here is some of the tools that you would use. I've got some other ones I'll show you here in a minute, but of course, if you're picking dirt out of a crack or something, these dental picks can be pretty handy. The caveat there is that if you've got parts that are scratchable, particularly if you're using steel to pick out a part on a piece of brass, you can scratch it, and some locations are pretty critical. You don't want to scratch them. This is 1/8" welding rod, and this is a handy tool. I ground it myself. One end is a point. The other end has a kind of a screwdriver shape to it. And this is handy sometimes for getting down into a tube and scraping something out of there. And I also keep a brass scraper as well, because like I say, sometimes you get a part that's scratchable that you don't want to scratch, or if you did scratch, you'd have to get rid of that scratch somehow. And so I put a couple of different ends on it here. And this is another handy tool. I went to Harbor Freight this morning to see what they had, and for $1.99, they had a 3-pack here with a steel bristle brush, a nylon bristle brush, and a brass or bronze bristle brush. And these are real good too for cleaning the parts, and we'll actually use these in just a minute here. Toothbrushes. Instead of throwing away your old toothbrush, you can use something like these. Pretty handy pipe cleaners. Every once in a while you'll need a pipe cleaner for something. We have these shish kebab skewers that are good for getting down into a spot and cleaning it out, and you sometimes can wrap your towel around this and clean out a hole. And then brushes, and I got these brushes. This was at Harbor Freight again this morning. I just went in to see what they had, and they had a whole bunch of different brushes, and I think this was $4. So I went ahead and bought them. I don't know if I'll use them, but they looked like they would be suitable for certain applications, so I picked them up. And here's another one. I don't really even know what I would use that for, but I've got it. What I don't have here that I actually use quite a bit, and I just ran out, is Q-tips. And they make Q-tips that come on a long stick like this with the Q-tip on the end. And that's really a handy kind of device for cleaning out holes and threads and stuff like that. So I'm going to buy some more, and I just don't happen to have any to show you right here today. But that's a good thing to have on hand too, is a good supply of Q-tips. As far as cleaning agents, there's probably an infinite supply of different cleaners. I'm just going to show you some of the main ones that I use. One is the Dawn dishwashing detergent. And this one here, well, it's antibacterial actually, so I don't know if that's important to you or not. This is Dawn Ultra. But Dawn had a reputation years ago of being a good cleanser for getting grease out of parts. And, this one cleans up to 2 times more greasy dishes. So I think they're still the same way. And if you use this in a solution with warm water, it'll probably work pretty well for you. And this is a simple green, and if you can see, it's not green, it's yellow. They have a simple green that comes in a yellow mix. I think it's the same stuff, but it has a little bit of lemon added to it. And I use simple green quite a bit, and we'll use that here in this video later. A couple of others. Brownell sells what they call a TCE cleaner, degreaser. And this is supposed to clean and not leave a residue behind, so it would be a good choice for certain types of parts. If you don't want to buy the Brownells, I think, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that Gun Scrubber is a similar type of a degreaser, the Birchwood Casey Gun Scrubber, and it would be quite a bit cheaper than. And then finally, for parts that aren't too dirty, I use alcohol. And as a matter of fact, our teacher at Lassen College in the Airgun Smith class, Randy Bimrose, he doesn't use this exclusively, but to a large extent, he uses alcohol too. And it's important to get the 91% alcohol. There's 2 kinds. One is 70% and the 91. 70% won't clean anything. The 91% will clean. It's not a real aggressive cleaner, but for parts that aren't really too bad, this is a good choice. And I keep it in a little spray bottle here, so I can just spray it where I want it, and that works pretty well. Okay, we're going to start with the mildest chemical that we use, which is the 91% alcohol. And this is best for, parts that you don't really want to take the finish off of, that aren't that dirty to begin with. So that's what we're going to do here. Is I got these 3 things, and basically all you're doing is spray them down with alcohol. And then we're just going to wipe them off. If you need to, you can use a brush or brass brush, whatever, but these aren't too bad. So really the brush, all that's doing is getting into some of the cracks here and cleaning some of this stuff out. Once you have them cleaned up, you can wipe them down and they should be good to go. All right, well, this next method was basically how we were shown up at Lassen College some years ago. And you use a simple green, purple power. There's all kinds of different cleaners that you can use. I just happen to have this on hand, and it's pretty handy stuff. So that's what we're going to use here. You could also use the Dawn or whatever you have available that works well for you. But we're just going to go ahead and spray these down. And one danger about using these degreasers is that you can degrease your parts, but as soon as you degrease them, they start to rust, so you have to be prepared to oil them back up pretty quickly. We spray those up like that. And what we're going to do is use the brush and clean them off, and then we're going to drop them into some warm water, and that washes them on the one hand, but also prevents them from rusting. So some of these are not very dirty, so we'll just go ahead and do a quick cleaning on them. Okay, we're just down to the last few parts here. And then what we're going to do is go over to the sink, and we're going to wash the parts off again. We're putting them in water, but we're going to wash them a couple of times in warm water to get them really clean. Then we're going to dry them off and lube them so that they don't get rusted. All right, well, here we are at the sink. I don't know how well this is going to show up on the camera, but we have our parts that we had cleaned, and they're in the warm water here. I use a screen like this. I suppose there's worse things than having your parts go down the drain, but it's really a pretty unpleasant experience. And then we'll just run warm water over them. Clean them up. There's the danger right there. That's the spring that goes in the bolt. Okay, they're clean. Now we got to put something on them to protect them. We'll go dry these off and lube them up before we reinstall them. All right, well, we got our parts out of the sink, and now we're going to dry them off, and then we're going to apply some oil to them. What I do when I'm drying them, basically just get them fairly dry with the rag, and lay them out here on the got a little tray here, and put them on there, and then we'll dry them the rest of the way with a hair dryer, and that seems to work pretty well. suppose you could bake them, but seems like a lot of effort to dry your parts. Once you get them warm too, I think they do take the lubricants a little better. Okay. And now we get the hair dryer. Put it on them warm. And then we'll dry these parts out the rest of the way. One thing to be careful of is these little small parts, like the spring that goes in the bolt, that can actually fly out of this. So if you do this, just be careful about watching your parts and not blowing them around too badly. All right, our parts are clean, they're dry, and now we got to lubricate them with something. You could use something like this, the old Beeman metaphilic metal-seeking oil. I mean, that's better than nothing. I have used Ballistol in the past. This is the aerosol version. And it seems to do all right too. What I used to use was One Lube, Slick 51 Lube. And you get these at auto parts stores or sometimes hardware stores. This is a different recipe than the one I used to use. It came in a red can. Now it's a black can, and it's supercharged now, you can see. So I don't know what they did to it, but this is the stuff I used to use to lube my pellets, for use in a pre-charged gun, and for these parts. And we're going to wipe most of it off anyway, but you can see it's infinite uses, so it probably works here. Lubricates and protects, that's what we want. It's supercharged with synthetic additives and extremely long lasting. So those are all good things. We're going to try this out. Like I say, I ran out of the red cans, and I went down to buy some more, and they don't have the red cans anymore. It's all this stuff here. And even at that, it's difficult to find. You really don't need to do the brass parts. So we're going to take the brass out. It won't hurt it, but we're going to be working that brass piece over a little bit later. Yeah, okay, so then it's just a matter of spraying it down. And then what we're going to do is wipe the excess oil off of all these parts. So at the end of all that, what you have is parts that are clean, they're dry, and they have a slight film of lubrication, very little. And that lubrication is primarily a Teflon based, or what was it, not Teflon, supercharged with synthetic additives. So that's going to do it. These are ready to reinstall in the gun and put it all back together. One last thing I did want to mention, though, is that I do have a small parts washer, and I use this from time to time. You know, you would load your parts in there, put warm water in it, and then use the Dawn. You know, would be one. Or you could use Simple Green as your cleaning solution. Some people use vinegar, or you can buy custom or products from the manufacturer of this particular parts washer. that are made for certain types of parts. Like they have a cleaner that works for brass, another one for steel, and the like. And these work really well. I just don't have much need for this because my parts are not usually that dirty, and I can clean them better and inspect them using the method that I showed here. But this is a backup option, and if you have really filthy parts, try and get them clean, and then this would be the method to finish off the cleaning. One thing about this, you would notice that your water will be dirty, and you might have to wash them a couple of times in the parts washer. And again, when you're done, you've got to put some sort of an oil onto your parts so that they don't rust. All right, well, that concludes this video. I plan to do another video on cleaning not the parts, but cleaning the gun, the tubes, and polishing and that type of thing. But this is just something that people have brought up. You know, how do you prepare your parts? And so I thought I'd get this video out now to cover that. All right, thank you for watching.